think that amongst the higher levels of students in human design, there's a lot of buzz about left and right. And so there should be, by the way, because it is one of the most profound pieces of information that comes out of the knowledge. And in understanding left and right, not simply understanding it within the personal context of how it affects us individually in our designs and so forth and so on, because that always brings in so many different things. To really see it at the evolutionary level, and in order to be able to grasp what that really means. It appears to me, and this is not something that I was told, so this is just, it appears to me. It's my logical feeling that the evolution of the Homo family, the Homo genus, the long line of our family tree, that this family tree has alternated from left to right historically. That is, going from phases of a dominant species incarnating that is to the left, and a dominant species that follows it, that will go to the right, and so forth and so on. I am deeply, deeply convinced that Neanderthal was a right creature. That is, a receptive rather than a strategic creature. That it was replaced by what we call modern humans, that is the seven-centered being, by what was a purely strategic creature. And here we are in this interregnum. And it is my feeling, it is really my intuition and my logic together, that these interregnums have been there before. That is, these crossover themes, this movement between one species to the next. And what we're dealing with here is that we're dealing with this transition from what we have inherited genetically, that is the left-centric strategic struggle of the form to survive, and what is emerging is the right, and it's not its inability to survive at all, but that survival is not the dynamic theme of its process. In other words, this is something very different. And this movement from the left to the right changes the way in which the understanding of circuit will operate. In other words, it cannot operate in the same way for the right as it does for the left. It is not possible. It can, in a sense, provide a kind of laid out geometry that can be deconstructed, left or right. But this is quite a transition. Let's think about what it is to be human. What it is to be human is that you are pressured, and you are pressured by a certain amount of information that you can access, and that pressure becomes the bedrock of making sense out of and developing ideas about and stimulating others with one's experience or the potential of experience. This is the sharing process. This is the human process. But if we go to the rave, it's the other way around. It's the taking in. And what is opening up here is not pressure going out, but absorption. The opening up of being able to take in all kinds of senseless information. No reason, no formula, and not looking to find sense through the idea, but the deconstruction of the idea into its senseless bits, stored perfectly so they can be reassembled. If I could show you how your mind stores the information you're taking in from me now, you would not be able to translate it. You would not be able to see the relationship. There are no words. There are no words. We do not store words. We do not store sentences. We store sounds. We store inherent genetic grammar. But you wouldn't recognize it. We don't think anything about it. We're just simply focused on the strategic application of any kind of information we have access to. But this is the theme of collect. It is about collection. And we have already seen that what happens when, there is no gate activity, that what happens is that the gate takes on a different relationship within the system itself. In no way does this circuit as an experiential circuit. And again, this is not now the abstract circuit. It's not. It is the rave experiential circuit, and any understanding of it is going to define our ability to understand the rave's process in life. Because this is what's going to guide it. And everything about what's guiding it is that it is not capable, by design, to guide itself. Because in essence, the processes are reversed. The prana is different. And look at what it collects. And look at what it does not collect. This is what it does not collect. Interesting to think about what it is to be right and the risks of being right according to the perspective of being left, which is a very funny thing. It's like the Nazis writing the history of the Jews. I don't really think it works well. But think about it for a moment. From the point of view of the left, on first glance, when you see that sort of, kind of, handicapped, autistic-like, blah, 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 infant, that the strategic left is going to look at that and it's going to see failure, dysfunction, whatever. You will also see immediately that it's going to be very expensive, no joke, or a torture, no joke, a lifetime of having to deal with it or not, and recognizing that the rewards that you were looking for and blah, 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 that this is a thing that can only be protected, has to be looked after all the time, fed, clothed, cleaned, blah, 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 blah. That would be the assumption of the left. Talk about books and their covers. It does not appear that the individual rave that is going to be right-oriented has indeed any concept of strategic survival. It's not there, nor is it intended to be there. Because if it was there, they would not be a rave, they would be human. And they would have a human agenda. And their, head ajna would not operate this way. It would not. It would not. There's going to be no 63 in the relative human design. This is a way of simply illustrating a transformation that will take place relative to the mutative chain. Again, remember the relationships here of the 4 and the 19 to the 49. That the Rave isn't simply different because of the octave circuit, but the byproduct of that in the way that the other circuitry operates. And this is their experiential plane. And their experiential plane is going to operate so differently because it is not connected to achievement. And understand what we're dealing with here, because after all, if we look at this from the cognitive point of view, what we're dealing with is, the design of a life force that is designed to take in very, very large amounts of data, to organize that data, to use its intellectual energy in its organization without being involved in reason or strategic application, in order to be able to surrender to a larger force that will tap in and provide for those things that the individual does not have. I mean, you cannot imagine, none of us can imagine, the impact of what it will be when we first meet a conscious penta aura, and you look physically at what are the participants, and your left human part is still caught in thinking vulnerable, and then you feel that aura. Ooh. Because it's not them. They are the parts of the whole that's greater than the sum of itself. And it is the conscious penta that runs the show. It's the conscious penta that has its material imperative. It is the conscious penta that provides, the way in which the information that is stored in these forms is accessed and put forward. Interesting. And it's not like the penta. I mean, it is one of those grand illusions. I mean, it's the illusion of illusions. And out of that emerges, because of the nature of penta and the way penta operates, out of that comes the ability of the right to do something so essential. Ignore the temptation to get stuck in the left world because you're afraid. Because you're afraid of survival. They're not going to fear for their survival. And they're not going to fear for their survival because it's not going to be the point. It isn't. So different from what we are. We are frightened of death. We do everything in our power to stay away from it, other than in the perversity of things. We're always afraid. It's what drives our intelligence. They're not afraid. They don't have to drive their intelligence. So different as creatures. And they should be afraid. I mean, at least from our perspective, you look at them and you say, woof, woof, woof. They should really be afraid, but they won't be afraid. It's not what makes them what they are.